The solution to the problem of human pain, whether it be physical or whether it be moral, is to go right into it.
Okay, hello.
Hi.
Hey.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
Okay, so this is Therapy for the Right Brain, and it is all about mental health and how to stay motivated and not go crazy, to be honest, when you're in entertainment and creating content, like you said. And because there's a lot of pressure, you don't really have a schedule. It's a little bit of like, it is like being an entrepreneur.
Well, I went crazy, so why am I on here?
Well, I'd like to hear why, I guess.
I'm just kidding.
No, but I went crazy too, because it's like hard to keep yourself motivated and like you have a purpose and disciplined. So we're talking all about that, and then want to hear what you're up to. So let's start by introducing you and tell us all about you.
That sounds good. Well, first of all, Megan, thank you so much for having me on your show. This is really cool. They even gave me, they offered me, you're in a fancy place when they offer you either cold water or room temperature water.
Did they really?
Yeah.
They didn't offer me that.
I know, but I'm the guest.
Wait, that's amazing. I love that.
Yeah, so thank you so much for having me on your swanky show and your swanky set. This is really cool.
Okay, so basically I just start by asking, just so the guests who don't know you can get an idea of like what you do essentially.
Totally. Okay, so my name is VITO GLAZERS. I'm originally from Chicago. I've been back and forth in LA for about 10, 12 years now.
Okay.
And primarily what I do is right now I do publicity and influencer marketing, and I help people become influencers in their respective space through PR, through social growth. But my background, I was a big internet marketer. I started in internet advertising.
Okay.
And then I got into acting and producing. I got into producing because I wanted to be an actor. So as you know, kind of the world's evolving, and like it's impossible to get cast and stuff unless you're like in this Illuminati of like of relatives in Hollywood. So the only way to really get your work out is to start producing your own work.
It's very true.
So I started producing my own stuff just to get myself involved in it. And then I really just kind of developed these formulas of like, I got this because I was always more of an artist at heart, but I understood the world of business. I had this unique ability to really monetize content creators and producers in Hollywood, because most creators are like so creative that they don't really care about money, and they don't care about the where their income's going to come from. They're just like, I'm going to create something and then I'm going to be rich.
Yep.
And it just doesn't work like that. So I realized that I had this, that I kind of spoke two languages. I speak the language of creators, and I also speak the language of advertisers and business people. So I was able to kind of mesh those things together. And I've been able to really actually help a lot of creators monetize their content. And I've been able to help a lot of advertisers kind of take their products and their message to the next level, because we're able to really create content that's engaging to the audience, as opposed to advertisers, which are typically like very metrics driven, right? They're like all numbers all the time. So, and that eventually will like lose steam with the audience. You can't build a brand around all stats only. You have to have like some edge of creativity to it. So the way I kind of present my mission statement for my company, I'm the CEO of a company called One World Publishing. And our mission statement is basically we use celebrities and the media to help brands and public figures tell their stories.
Boom.
So that's it.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's also like exactly what I feel like you did that at the perfect time, where like this content creation, digital media, and the entertainment world were colliding.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Totally. And actually, so I didn't even realize what was really happening. And I actually think this year coming is going to be like my big year, because I've been kind of juggling all these things, because even though I was having success on the advertiser side and doing things in a new way, so there's a couple challenges, right? So like if you're a disruptor, that's like a big word that everybody's using now, like disruptor. What people forget is that the people you're disrupting aren't going to celebrate you, right? They're not like, oh, look at this guy. He's so like ingenious and intuitive, right? Like, let's just celebrate him. They're like, no, this guy's messing up my money. Like, we need to take him out.
For sure.
So I had a lot of problems, because I was like showing creators how to like cut out the studios and like teaching people how to like self-publish. And I'm getting all this heat from these people that I look up to and that I want to do business with, or that I used to, because a lot of them are just like getting me too'd, and the Weinsteins and all these guys. These were like icons, right? Like everybody was trying to work with them.
For sure. It's like the whole model of marketing and media now is just done like a whole 360 almost.
I think it's a 180, isn't it?
No, but like, no, I guess it's because I said 360 because it literally did like a full circle, but it didn't go back that way. So I guess it's 180.
Well, maybe 270, somewhere in between.
That's good. 270. I was an English major, so. No, but now I think that that's more appreciated and respected. Whereas before, when it first started happening, everyone was like, oh shit, what's going on?
Yeah. Yeah. And it was kind of like, oh yeah, like have fun with your little like 1,000 fans, you know, or whatever.
Right.
But so it's changed a lot. But so I was always kind of trying to like, I was doing this work to sustain myself. And then I was like, oh, like, Daddy, won't you love me? You know, like Hollywood studios, why don't you just like accept me for who I am? And now it's just like, forget them. Like, who cares about these studios? Like, they literally have nothing to offer, you know? So I'm like, now I've kind of gotten in the role where I'm like, there's no point in being like a celebrity. Like, I don't even care. Like, if they offer me the role of like Spider-Man or something, like I would take it, but it still wouldn't even make me that influential. Like, I don't know who the last 3 people who played Spider-Man were. And that's like a huge role, you know?
I literally, ironically, watched Spider-Man, the new one last night, or part 2. I didn't even know there was a part 1. And I used to strive for the same thing where I was like, you know what, I want to make it in Hollywood.
Right.
And everything you're saying is so in line with what I'm talking about in this podcast, so that's great. Thank you. But I moved out here, and I'm very like, I don't like authority figures. So within the first year, I was like, I fucking hate this system.
Yeah. Oh, we can swear on the show?
Oh yeah.
All right, cool.
I love swearing. Well, yeah. You know, don't go overboard. It's fine. Yeah.
Okay.
But I immediately started creating content. Because I was like, I don't want anyone to tell me what to do. You go to an audition and there's like 4 male casting directors who are just, you know, sitting there. One's on their phone. One's like looking at his watch. They don't care what you're doing. I drove an hour in traffic in Los Angeles.
Yep.
I'm sweating. I have anxiety. I'm going to be late to my part-time job afterwards because I have to drive back in traffic. And I have 2 lines.
Yeah.
And I don't get cast.
And then the girl who gets cast is like the girl he met on Seeking Arrangement
100%. Or like, exactly. Or like his niece.
Well, it's true. So I think the thing that's happening now is that what it used to happen before is in Hollywood, you'd have this like handful of people, right? Because there's only like 3 channels. So you'd have 100 celebrities splitting like billions of dollars in ad revenue. Yep. Now what happens is you have like a couple thousand, maybe thousands of creators, and they're splitting. So you have more people creating and making good incomes. So I'd rather see, and like my vision for the future of entertainment is I'd rather see 1 million people making like really nice 6-figure incomes, doing their like creating, living their passion, creating content, and like creating value for their audiences, rather than like 100 celebrities just becoming elitists.
Oh, for sure. And in line with what you said, we were talking about Gary Vee earlier. Yeah. And what I love, I've been listening to his book, Crushing It. Yeah. And just, I've been diving in this world a lot. So a few things I've noticed is that he says it, and a bunch of other people who are influencers and, you know, speak all over the world, whatever. They all said if you can have a talent and you can have a business, but if you have no like purpose or passion or value behind that, you're going to lose steam and you're going to lose your audience. So it's about providing value to people. And I think that's the new wave of influencer.
So that's an easy cop out, in my opinion, to say that. Okay. So I'm writing a book right now, and it's called Influencer: The Art of Becoming an Influencer, even if you're unattractive and talentless.
That's good.
The VITO GLAZERS life story. And the point of the book is actually, so it's like step 1 is getting in the mindset, right? So you have to get in a mindset. That's where you're like, I deserve to like be in a position where I own my time and I create content and people will take in what I'm saying, right? Like that's step 1, because a lot of people are like, I'm not good enough. Nobody's going to care about my story. I'll go on like a little interesting tangent about this. You know, I post all these workout videos on Instagram, and I'm not really like a workout type, but like,
you have been consistent, I've noticed.
I'm very consistent, and I've actually been getting a lot of results, but I'm not like the buff influencers, right? But here's the thing. My story views doubled when I started posting those workout videos.
Interesting.
And people message me all the time. They're like, Vito, you're so consistent in the gym.
Yeah.
Like, I watch these big buff influencers, and they're like, I'm like, they're probably using steroids and all this stuff, but they're like, I know you, and you just like to eat and sit around and laugh. And
so it's relatability.
Right. So they're like, I'm starting to work out now because I see you doing it, so I guess I could do it, you know? So I'm like, all right, well, whatever that means. But I tell people all the time, because, you know, I run this PR company, and I'm meeting with like CEOs and different stuff, and I'm like, hey, we got to tell your story. And they're like, oh, my story's not that interesting. Yep. And I'm like, listen, even if you're regurgitating the same Gary Vee content or the same Tony Robbins content, it's all kind of the same message, right?
Yep.
So like, even if you're regurgitating that content, it's still somebody who looks like you might need to hear it from you rather than from them for it to
Absolutely.
resonate. So just because you don't have your own, just because you don't think it's original, as long as you can take kind of the message and show people how it affected you and how you've used it, I think that that's step one of the mindset, right? Is like, get out of the way that like you have to be so original and so this and that. You just have to be connected to your audience. You have to be authentic, right?
Authenticity, because I totally agree with everything you said. And I just listened to a guy who wants to be an influencer, and he was saying all of, the same cliche stuff that you've heard.
Yep.
And I was like, I feel totally disconnected from this, because you could tell it wasn't authentic.
Right.
And then I watched the behind the scenes take, and he was having somebody spoon feed him these motivational quotes. So it's like, that's not going to work. If he was authentic and, he was overweight and said he was depressed and everything else, people would believe that more than him just like, regurgitating.
Right. So there's that. So that's the mindset part. But here's the most important thing that I think people need to know about getting into influencer and content now. I did the same thing, and I go to Soho House, I hear 20 people having the same conversation, like, we need to make a viral video, we need to do something really cool and viral, but that's wrong.
Yeah.
In my opinion, and this is chapter 2 of my book, is basically follow the money. So you don't have to be like a sellout, but don't just create content that you think is cool and then hope it blows up and that people pay you. There's nothing wrong with being like, okay, this is like, who's paying for content, right? Like, maybe it's a CBD brand, maybe it's a fitness thing, maybe just go through Instagram, and Instagram has like the top things, like, who blah, 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 like different whatever, like different categories of what their popular trending things are. So it's like fitness, comedy. So just go through those and figure out which one of those you fit into, and then figure out somebody that's paying, maybe even look through the posts and see who's paying money to produce content, and then create content, then reverse engineer it and say, these people have money, but I can create authentic content for that. And here's the thing, here's where it's not selling out, because money is actually a driver of the audience. So where there's money, that means that there's people looking for that stuff. So it's kind of a way to reverse engineer where the audience wants to put their eyeballs, because they're saying, we're paying for this stuff, so this is where our attention is going. Right. And then it's up to you to create something to then grab their attention and then get it on yourself. So that's, I think, the biggest creator mistake, is not focusing on where people's attention already is and then giving them something to add value to that, instead of just like making your whatever videos that you think are funny and then putting them out there and then thinking that somebody's just going to discover you and pay you a bunch of money for it.
For sure. That's beyond true. And so when I said add value, it was in line with what you're saying. I meant so what I've done, and which is totally wrong. Like you said, I've just created all this content in hopes that, boom, something's going to blow up. And I've done that for 5 years, and it's ridiculous. And I finally had this wake up call, and I was like, okay, this is not how it's going to work. Like, that's not how it's going to work. Cool. I've done cool stuff, and it's won some awards, but like, I'm not making money. I'm stressed out. And then that makes you not want to create. So I think in terms of adding value, I think what I was saying by that is that you need to take whatever it is, whatever skill or gift or story, which could be your personal story, whatever happened, and bringing that to the table rather than just like you said, I want to blow up and I want a viral video. Yeah. It's like, that's not gonna.
It's kind of a selfish way to create if you really think about it.
That's what I'm getting at, is the selfishness behind creativity and Hollywood. I think is people are starting to catch on that that's not the way to operate. And to be like, me, my content. If you're providing value, you're telling a story, you're helping a brand, even if you're getting money in return, that is helping someone rather than just creating content and being like, look at me, I want to be famous and recognized.
Yeah, it's actually kind of narcissistic to be like that, 100%. Right? Like, to just be like, oh, I'm so cool that somebody should pay me for it. And then that's when these people end up waiting tables their whole career, right? It's like, why not just align yourself with something that people want, and then add yourself in as a creator to that, because there is value to creating, and here's the thing too, is that everybody has a story to tell and somebody that needs to hear it. So it does. I love this book called, I think it's called Expert Secrets by Russell Brunson.
Oh.
And he does the ClickFunnels thing, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's so cool that entrepreneurship and content creation are all like kind of like
I love it.
having this big orgy right now. Like,
no, it is.
you know, yeah.
It's amazing.
And so it's really cool because like I actually feel that entrepreneurs. So I'm like a career entrepreneur, and now I'm finally like falling into my role as a creator. I was always like an entrepreneur who liked doing creating as a hobby.
Right.
And now they're kind of like balancing out, and I'm feeling like the maximum version of myself for the first time ever.
Oh yeah.
And because entrepreneurship was kind of like frowned upon. It was like another word for unemployment. Now it's like, now I feel like entrepreneurs are like the new athletes.
100%.
Right. So before it was like athlete or like movie stars, and then it was like musicians, athletes, and now it's like entrepreneurs. You know, people like follow entrepreneurs like they're movie stars.
They do. They
They're
go
like,
and they speak all around the world.
Yeah.
They get paid to speak or whatever else. And
they get paid big bucks to speak. That's
Yeah.
like them performing basically.
For sure.
And then they also, you know, they come out with products, and they're coming out with all their stuff, their books, their and then people like follow their contracts. They're like, wow, did you see this like entrepreneur just like sold out his stake for 55 million? These used to be numbers that were like exclusive to Kobe Bryant and like, you know, big ballers like that. And now entrepreneurs are kind of the new all-stars, right? So
sure.
it's about time get recognized.
I know. No, I love it. And it gives you so much more power as a creator. If you can take that mindset on, and like, that's the company I have that I guess what led to this is that I myself went through this, and I was speaking to so many creatives and still am, like literally had 2 conversations last night about it, about, well, I'm a creative and I have all this stuff, but 1, I don't feel confident enough to tell it. 2, I don't know where to begin.
Right.
And 3, I don't know how to start a business. I'm just a creative.
Right.
So there's like still a big disconnect, but I think
Right.
it's finally being bridged, which is really helpful, because I think the whole starving artist thing is depressing and doesn't need to be there.
No,
Like,
and if you're a starving artist, it's real, and you actually have talent.
Yeah.
It's because you're creating selfishly.
oh my God, I love that.
It's really true, because
100%,
if you have
yes.
talent and you are willing to use your talent to where it's needed,
Yep.
you will get paid for it, because there's actually a massive shortage of creative people who have the mental capacity to deal with a business. So if you're able to do both of those, like, I feel like that's why the movie studios and the record labels were able to exploit artists for so long.
For sure.
Because they're just like, oh, here's like a little, like, here's some drugs and some hush money, you know, like,
No, it's true.
Go sing and dance for me. And then they're raking in all the big bucks because they know how to do it. And these creators were, all they really had to do was like set up a business and manage their money a
themselves.
little bit,
Yep.
you know, and they could have that's why a lot of people are self-publishing now, or becoming partners in labels and stuff, because there's just those labels don't really offer any value on top of the fact that they don't really understand digital distribution that well.
Nope.
So they're kind of like archaic as far as I'm concerned. You know, like, it used to be my dream so bad to be like part of a big Hollywood studio, but now I would just be like a talking monkey for them, you know, like, and they would never hire me because I'm way too business savvy. So they would
They
never
don't
put
want
me in
to.
their projects. So now I'm on my own.
Hell
But
yeah.
It's, you know, it's working out.
Yeah,
So, you know, I got
obviously.
the first film coming out.
Okay, so tell me about, tell me.
So I've always wanted to do a film.
Right.
And a couple years ago, I was working on a radio show in Chicago.
Okay.
And I met Ron Jeremy. And Ron, it's not that kind of film.
Or is
so I love telling people stories. And originally, I had pitched him on doing a 60-minute stand-up comedy special for Netflix.
Okay.
Because he's doing stand-up now, and he's actually
Yes.
hilarious. So we end up shooting 40 hours of content in 4 days.
40.
40 hours. And because he's the hardest working man in show business, you know? So, so he just loves to work. I respect it so much. Like,
That's great.
If we called him right now and we're like, hey, Ron, we'll give you like $300 to like film a podcast right now. I'd be like, all right, let me like,
Let's
just,
come down.
yeah, let me put my whatever shirt I got on over. And just for the record, that day that he showed up like a schlub, I asked him, I said, hey, come dressed up because we're going to be doing your interview and this is going to be like your legacy.
And then he showed up.
He showed up with like a ham sandwich, like spilled all over his shirt and like a Hawaiian thing. And like,
He brought a change of clothes.
I guess.
He did
I
bring a
don't
change
know.
of clothes.
But he loves his Crocs. I respect that
Was
he
he
loves.
wearing Crocs?
He only wears Crocs.
Okay, then he must have.
This is just like a man who just like refuses to compromise.
Which I respect, actually.
Yeah.
He's a
Yeah,
character.
It's admirable. So we could all be a little more like Ron Jeremy in our lives.
You hear that?
But anyways, Ron is really interesting. So we end up doing all these interviews and he starts telling me, he's like, nobody's ever asked me this stuff before. Nobody's ever asked me. Because I asked him, I'm like, have you ever been in love?
Yeah.
You know, you've been with 4,000 of the hottest women on earth. Have you ever been in love? And he's like, yeah. there was a woman that I loved, and I'm like, do you have any kids? He's like, no, not that, none that I know of. I'm like, where's all your money going? He's like, oh, I'm leaving it all to my turtle, Cherry, $10 million.
Wait, what?
Yeah, his
I think you told me this. I forgot.
His turtle's getting $10 million, but really what he's doing is he's donating it to this like huge animal sanctuary that cares for like all these endangered animals and like fights for animal rights. And then they promise to take care of his turtle, and his turtle's going to live to be like 140.
Oh yeah, because they live forever. Yeah.
Yep. So like the deal is he loves animals. Like he loves like saving animals, helping, donating animals. So I think it's just an interesting play on capitalism where it's like, sleep with 4,000 women on camera, and now animals are taken care of for 140 years. So
it's so true. That's really fascinating. Wow.
These are all the things that like connect in my head,
No,
it's
but
like,
it makes sense.
So we're doing we got all this amazing content, and I became really good friends with his manager, Dante Russinelli, Golden Artist Entertainment. They're an amazing group of people, him and his wife, super cool. And I started talking to him. I'm like, nobody's ever told this story before, because there's 2 documentaries out about Ron already. One's called The Hardest Working Man in Show Business, and that just focuses entirely on like his decade as an icon in the adult industry.
Got it.
Which is a great story on its own, and it deserves a film of its own. It's a fascinating film. I could make this whole thing about, I could tell Ron's story. Like, I think what's going to end up happening is like my career is going to end up me being, do you know who Tom Dreesen is, the comedian?
I know the name.
So Tom Dreesen made his whole career around, he was like Frank Sinatra's like opening comic.
Oh, yes.
So he's made his whole career of just like telling stories about him hanging out with Frank Sinatra. Like if things don't work out for me, like in the big time, like I could make like a whole backup career around just going around telling my stories about all the times I hang out with Ron Jeremy, because it's freaking hilarious. Yeah. And like, it's just so interesting. So, well, anyways, he had that one film, Hardest Working Man in Show Business, and then he did a second film it's called Life After the Buffet, and it's basically all about his like heart transplant and stuff like that.
Okay.
But all these movies made money, and then my movie's called Ron Jeremy Too Big for TV, and it's literally like it covers his childhood, his background, everything growing up. Like he was a special ed teacher in Brooklyn until he was 35.
You told me that, which is fascinating.
He's still licensed. It's just nobody will let him around kids, but but he's still licensed, and his dream was always to be a Broadway actor.
Really?
And then his girlfriend, as a joke, he used to live in a 1-bedroom apartment with his grandma in Brooklyn, and his girlfriend, as a joke, sent his pictures to Playgirl magazine, and kind of as a joke, they published it, and it just went nuts from there.
And then that's how he started.
Then he got a call from a company in California and said, hey, we want to put you in an adult movie.
And he moved here.
And he said he did one film, and he's like, oh, that was the best money I ever made. You got another one? You got another one? And he said,
wow.
But his celebrity is directly in correlation to his grind. Like he's never been one to like in grind, and no pun intended there either, right. But his hustle, like he is the kind of guy, like he's always trying to work 24/7. He never turns down a job, and he's got the record for most adult films ever. Wow. But you might not know this. He also has the record for most mainstream films ever.
Really?
He's been in more mainstream films than any other actor.
Just as like cameos.
Cameos. He's in Ghostbusters. He's in so many movies you would never imagine. So he's got like hundreds of cameos.
Fascinating guy.
And some big roles too. Yeah. But it's just fascinating, and he's been a big help to me. So we're telling that story.
Okay.
And what I love about Hollywood is that people come here, with a story or to build a story, and you tell other people's stories, right? When you're acting, you're like taking on the role to tell somebody else's story. And I always say the coolest thing about Hollywood to me is that people come here to tell other people's stories in hopes that one day somebody will tell theirs.
Oh.
And so that's what we're all here for, right? Is like
a world of knowledge over here.
Creators are just creative entrepreneurs.
I love that.
Right?
I'm going to call myself that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just be a creative entrepreneur.
I love that.
Because it's true. Because as a creator, you are an entrepreneur. And when you're an entrepreneur, you might be making an app or selling widgets or whatever, but you're still creating as well. So being a creator and being an entrepreneur are virtually the same thing, except for being an entrepreneur is a little more data driven and like numbers driven.
I think the difference is you can be just a creator,
right.
which I was,
right.
and that's with no money in mind.
Right. Yeah.
You're like, this is funny, I'm going to put it out. And that's fine, because
Yep.
people do think it's, find stuff funny and they want to be entertained.
Right.
But if there's no intention behind it, whether that's making money or having a message, then like, what is it?
What is it, right? And who does it help?
No one.
And what's the point?
It's helping yourself.
Right. So like I think like the problem is people get mixed up because like artists and films of the past art was so confined to like there wasn't a lot of creators because people were busy like trying to find a loaf of bread
Be
to
alive,
live on, right?
yeah.
So they were like, oh wow, this guy's got enough bread to actually like draw a stick figure on the wall. Like this guy's admirable, right? And that's why artists were elevated because they were people that were able to express themselves and things like that. But now in the current culture, it's like it's admirable to survive off of creating.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
It's so true.
Yeah.
It did a 180.
Number one job that people under 40 want to do around the world in every country except for China is be an influencer.
Oh, I'm sure that right now. That
Number
does not
one,
surprise me.
if surveyed everybody from 40 years old down to 4 years old, if you ask people what their dream job would be, the number one job is influencer.
Interesting.
That's why I'm writing a book, because I reverse engineered the market and I saw that there's a demand for people who want to learn how to be influencers. And now I'm going to create content for them to teach them how to be influencers.
I'm just going to probably do the same thing for like the female edition.
We'll see who
Can I steal your business model?
You can try. Listen,
No.
it's a free and open internet, right?
I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. No, what I've been doing is helping people. I'm trying to start a business. Okay. I've been helping creatives start businesses.
Yeah. No, it's genius.
Which is essentially the same thing, isn't it?
Not really. So I'm teaching people more of like a formula of how to take their knowledge and pivot their knowledge and their passion into an influencer career.
Okay.
And I'm also focusing on a different kind of influencer. When you think influencer, you're thinking like a booty model with 1 million followers selling skinny tea. I'm thinking like a chiropractor who's the top knowledge in his chiropractic.
That's super
already
smart.
super successful, become the influencer among chiropractors, and then teach their knowledge, build a following of chiropractors.
That's exactly what you really should. Gary, crushing it. I can't stop
I've read
talking about it.
I like Gary's stuff.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
I know. I mean, I've met Gary a bunch of times, and I could book him for anything you want. If you guys want to hire him for something, like
I would love
cool.
to just hang out with him. So what gets me discouraged when I'm starting a business and I'm helping people start businesses is that I am just inundated. Great word, Megan. With like all of these. What are they like? They're like these entrepreneurs.
They're like success memes, I guess they're called.
Yeah, but it's nonstop, and I think it's just because I'm so in that.
Right.
Niche.
Well, the algorithm is feeding you what you've
Right.
told them you like.
True, but like in my mind, I'm like, wow, this is so oversaturated, and there's all these people who want to be doing this, and then I feel like I'm like, why should I be doing that? Not that I'm trying to do exactly what they're doing, but
Right.
it does seem like there's this huge epidemic of like this social entrepreneur. Which is
There is. Well, it's not an epidemic. It's just the fact that there's audience. So there's people catching up to the audience.
But I'm finding stuff, and on TikTok recently, which I joined, there's all these like Gary V wannabes.
Right.
And it's very, very, it makes you feel like icky, which is fine. It's like start somewhere and then build it. But
They're all trying. They're all trying.
Yeah.
But see, now the thing is like once somebody's already done it, then it's time to do your own thing.
Exactly.
You know, so. And nothing's sacred on the internet, right? Like there's imitation is the highest form of flattery. So it's like, all right, cool. Like,
That's true.
Look, I just told you I'm doing a book and now you're stealing it.
I did not steal your book.
Yeah.
I have my own book. Okay. My book is about surviving Hollywood.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
That's a really good one.
Because I've been through shit and back since I've been here.
Now I'm worried about telling you my really good line that I prepared for the show because it's going to end up in your book.
No, it will not.
Well, at least it's going to be on the record here.
Yeah, that's fine. So I wouldn't. I would never
okay.
do that.
That's
okay,
okay.
so what is your so now about mental health.
Yeah.
Like I said, that's why we talk about it, because it's hard being a creative entrepreneur. What do you think the biggest misconception of making it in Hollywood is?
Oh, Megan, I'm so glad you asked. I think the biggest misconception to making it in Hollywood is that you have to be great looking or super talented to make it. And I actually started researching this because I always told my dad, I was like, Dad, I'd love to be an actor. And I'm like pretty good at acting and I'm in all this stuff. And,
right.
And he's like, you're not good looking enough to be an actor.
Oh my God, that's so sad.
He's like, John Wayne is an actor, and like all these guys are but then I was like, I'm like, well, Jack Nicholson's not that great looking, or like Bill Burr, or like any of these guys, like Kevin Hart, he's like 4 feet tall, so. And then I started looking and I was like, you know what? The percentage of actors that are actually super attractive is like 5%.
Oh, it's especially there's influencers who are super attractive.
Right, and models.
Yes.
So modeling's different than acting.
But that's
totally
a
different game.
Exactly.
So, but to be an actor, I just think you have to be authentic.
That's literally all. Meryl Streep is not like drop dead gorgeous.
Yeah.
The best actresses and actors in the world are not insanely good looking.
Yeah. So I think that's the first thing that people need to get in their head.
Okay.
Is that they don't have to be self-conscious about their looks. It's great to be the best version of yourself, for sure, right? Like, but I mean, look at Jonah Hill, like,
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
or like look at any of these. So, and Jonah Hill and Leonardo DiCaprio, they go together perfectly. The Rock and Kevin Hart go together perfectly because it's great to be good looking. And it should, look, let's not say that like it doesn't help to be great looking, right? Especially if you're a woman, but like, you don't have to be a supermodel to make it as even an influencer.
For sure.
You just have to, and you don't have to be particularly talented either. In fact, like, you know, I love producing like these bad TV shows and like, because the thing is, so like, I'd love to make like some huge special effects motion picture, but I don't have like $300 million to risk, right? So if I always tell people, I've been telling people for years who create content, they're like, oh, I want to do special effects and this and that. And I'm like, listen, like, if you can't be the best in Hollywood, then just be the best at being the worst. Because that stands out just as much as being the absolute best. And if it looks like you're like trying too hard, you're just gonna land short of like Michael Bay and like and Steven Spielberg. Like, you're never gonna have the budget or the teams that these guys have. So why even try to compete? But you can be the best at being the worst. You can be the most hilarious, the most tongue in cheek, the like satire on that. So that's one angle that I've done when it comes to content is like, if I just know I can't be the best, then I'll just focus on how bad can I be to almost make it that stand out.
So do you use that strategy on yourself?
I do. Well, like for my personal brand, right, I got to kind of keep it together because I'm like influencing like the business world. And then I'm also like, I've actually I never really used the term influencer, but people are always like, what do you do? They're like, you know, you're like creating content, you're making these business deals and you're doing stuff and you're reverse engineering things. And like, and I'm just like, I don't know. But then finally I was doing the PR thing and I realized that the clients that come to me, they want influence. That's why they're doing what they do.
So it's not just PR that you're doing. You're doing, you do both. Like I noticed that.
Yeah. So I do, you know, they come to me because they have they want to tell their brand story or whatever because they want that to be influential. And then I'm like, okay, so we do all the PR for you. And then they're like, well, I need more, you know, I need more social media followers. So we run campaigns for them to grow their social media following. And then they're like, well, now that I have the social media followers and the PR, now I need to be like booked on stages. And then it becomes very easy for me. So I have kind of like a formula now that I follow. And the formula is basically like, if somebody wants to be an influencer, we create a monetization strategy first. How are we going to make money off of this? Right? So typically it's either a coaching product, some kind of corporate sponsorship, or anything else that kind of like a high ticket service or whatever. Like for me, it's PR.
PR.
So I sell PR. That's my product.
So for your coaching, that's almost like a consultant kind of, right?
Yeah. So you could be, it could be a course, it could be a consultant, it could be for you, it could be like a commercial video package, right? Like you're gonna do like your goal is to sell these $5,000 commercial video packages or something like that.
Oh, interesting.
Okay, so then there's our monetization strategy.
Okay.
Number two, then we create the story and the narrative around that, and we do a bunch of PR, which I call building the wall, and I do all digital PR because, you know, like it's cool to be on TV for 30 seconds or whatever, but people Google you.
For sure.
Right? So we build a wall of all the information that we want people to see about you when we start sending people, before we send it, not after. Then part three is we start getting traffic going, and traffic can come either from like influencer shout outs or traffic can come from like media buying, like Facebook ads and Google ads or some kind of ads or even a TV commercial. Then you flood the traffic to your story or to your offer. And then they basically are Googling you and they see all these great things about you, the narrative that you control. And then they're like, oh, I want to do business with this person. And then you lead them into a opportunity to purchase from you.
Wow.
And that's how you reverse engineer the influence.
So that's like a very quick way of learning the very hard way of like what not to do, what to avoid, what not to sell, what to sell, what brand to have. Because I mean, my brand has evolved over 6 years and it can still keep evolving, but that's it's a very smart way to like, you know, if you have the money for it, to like do it quicker.
Well, there's a really interesting thing, saying that they say about paid advertising. And they say, if you have a bad idea, paid advertising will just help you realize it's bad faster.
Interesting.
Right?
No, it's true. Because you're putting it on the market. So the market's going to tell you if it's good or not.
Right. So it's either going to succeed or it's not.
Right.
And I think that's cool. Because, you know, like Facebook, like Zuckerberg is all about just like make a lot of mistakes.
Yeah.
That's what his thing is. Just make a lot of mistakes because it's not failing, it's learning. Right. So
it's true. I think once you have that switch and you can kind of take the power back, which honestly making money helps and like establishing a brand.
Yeah. And well, you have to understand the thing about money. And that's part of mindset is that so many people have demonized money. People are like, oh, it's evil to make money. It's
Absolutely.
evil to charge. And here's where, no, you got to say, no, money is a reflection of people's attention and people's interest. And so if I'm not making money, I'm not creating things that resonate with people. That's how you need to frame your mind.
So wait, say the last part one more time.
That if you're not making money, you're not creating things that are resonating with anybody.
Interesting. Yes.
Because people will put their money where the attention is the new currency, but because where attention goes, money flows, right? So if you're not getting money, it's because you're not creating for people.
And it comes back to the same thing. It's like you're creating selfishly for yourself.
Right,
You're like,
right.
yeah.
And then you're using the fact that you're an artist as an escape to justify that to yourself mentally.
Yes.
So the first thing you have to do is get yourself some money.
It's so true.
Yeah,
And for this is a big thing for just artists and just creatives is that is such a big thing because you can work at a restaurant, you can work at a clothing store, you could be a dog walker. I've literally done all of them. You could be a tutor, but it's like you feel like shit. You're not passionate about it. Like I love dogs, but I don't want to walk random dogs and pick up their shit.
Yeah. To justify your art, right?
Right. And it's like, you know, you'll get to be, when I hit 30, I just had this huge wake up call and I was like, I don't want to live like this. And I don't think you need to.
You don't.
Yeah.
And think about, so here's what, and you talk about, you know, all the pressure of getting millions of followers, right?
Right.
I tell people to focus on their I call it either the core 100 or the core 1000. So the core 100 is get 100 people. This is a little more challenging. So let's focus on the core 1000. That's a little bit more realistic. Let's say you're a musician, you're an actor, you're some kind of coach, a teacher, whatever you are, whatever creative you are. Focus on a core 1,000 people.
Okay.
Build a tribe of 1,000 people who are willing to spend $100 a year with you.
I love that.
Then you're making 6 figures.
That is
right?
so smart.
You don't have to have 1 million followers. Just 1,000 people that are willing to spend $100 a year on you. Totally attainable. People spend that $100 a month on gym memberships, coffee, all kinds of stuff. Nipsey Hussle, actually, I got that from. He did a whole feature in Forbes about it.
Oh, wow.
He built his career independently by focusing on 1,000 fans that would spend $100 a year on him. And basically for $100, he would give them access to like all his shows. They would get all his albums.
I read this.
And they would get like a t-shirt or something. But once he was making 100 G's a year as an artist, he didn't have to walk dogs.
Exactly.
He didn't have to wait tables. He didn't have to do anything. You're making 100 G's a year, you can live.
And you don't feel the pressure and like the desperation of going into a casting room as an actor, I know, and being like, oh my God, if I don't book this Walmart commercial, like I'm screwed. And that is the worst feeling and takes away all your power.
Yeah,
like,
it takes, well, and I think the agencies and stuff rely on that. On that feeling for control to keep the industry. So I would say like just figure out something that you can do to create content, create value, to get 1,000 people to give you $100 a year. That's $10 a month.
And that's a subscription service.
And if you can do subscription, then it gives you the power to scale.
Right.
You know, so then you're like, okay, this works on 1,000 people. Now I just need to find another 1,000, another 1,000. And then you imagine you get 1 million and you're really killing it. But then you have money. You're like, okay, now I'm making 100 G's a year. I can spend a little on PR. I can invest a little bit in ads to grow my following. I can invest in some giveaways.
And you can make your own content. You can make your own films. Like I made a horror short in 3 days. And was 16 hours a day. I wrote it, produced it, and directed it. I was going to have a nervous breakdown. I was exhausted. It didn't come out the way I want. And it's because I couldn't spend an extra like $200-$300. You know what I mean? Which is crazy. It is. Because then it would have elevated my film.
Yep. And on top of the fact that like you would have had an audience of 1,000 people that if they're already liking your content, you can pull more from them.
For sure.
And be like, hey, like I want to do this film for you.
Right.
You know, like can you guys want to throw down so I can make this film great? Or even if you don't do that, you're like, hey, I made this film. You like my other stuff. You have a core audience to share it with. So I think people need to think a little bit smaller. Now, if you want to go for a core 100, which is kind of what I actually built my business around.
You're saying you said earlier that's harder?
It's harder because I focus on getting 100 people to give me like thousands.
Oh, right.
So it's easier to get 1,000 people to give you $100 a year each. I was focusing more on like getting 100 people to give me $1,000+
because your packages are a lot more expensive.
Yeah, and now I only do one-on-ones with clients for $100K a year contract. Jesus, so if you want to work one-on-one with me for me to basically bring this formula to life for you, it's $100K.
Okay, and that's for a year.
For a year, yeah, I work together.
And what's your like least expensive package?
Least expensive. I mean, I'll always work with somebody who basically 5 G's a month.
Okay.
5 G's a month, and then We'll do like 1 or 2 stories for them each month for that. And then I don't do any one shots anymore. It just really dilutes my energy and takes away from like the clients that are really willing to spend. You can't build somebody's story through the media doing like 1 or 2 stories. And people have like, I noticed that the clients that it attracts is that they're people that have these like insane expectations.
For sure.
And they're like, I give you 10K, like, why aren't I famous?
And they're really difficult.
Yeah.
I
And
noticed that.
they end up eating 80% of your time.
Yep.
I've gotten kind of over that. And now I'm just kind of really focusing on people that are really committed to their brands. But I have a monetization strategy. And I'm really focused on people who want to monetize. Okay. So my monetization strategy is basically what I described earlier. It's basically step 1, we figure out how we're going to monetize it, right? What do you have to sell? I help people develop the product from top to bottom. Step 2 is we do all the PR for it. We do all the storytelling, all the narrative, all the branding. Step 3, we start flooding it with traffic from whatever traffic source, we find wherever the audience is at, we bring the audience to the offer. And then step 4, we do like retargeting and we do more PR, and then from there, I take and then we in that process we're also like growing their social media and everything. So once they have like a big social media around like 100,000 followers, they have a bunch of good PR. Then I start booking them on stages, and I teach them how to tell their story in a way to sell their product from the stage.
Smart.
And you can make like if you have a 5G product, you can take that product and you can go on a stage that's relevant to your audience. So like for you, it might be like a creator summit or like VidCon or something like that. And you go to VidCon and you tell your story in a way that I would teach you how to tell your story, which I've done for credit card processing CEOs, myself, business experts, artists, all kinds of people. You tell your story in this specific formula that I develop. And at the end, people from the audience, if you close 5 people from the audience, that's 25 G's in 30 minutes.
Yeah, it's insane.
And you do that 4 times a year, it pays my whole fee. And then you do a couple webinars and you can double your money. So it sounds like a big investment, but for the people doing it, they ROI on it substantially.
Well,
and
it makes sense.
One of my clients did 200K in 45 minutes.
What?
Yeah, and from a talk.
Wow.
Yeah, he got, because they were paying $1,000 a lead, and he got 200 super qualified leads in a 45-minute talk.
Wow.
Because it was the perfect pitch, the perfect room, and he got 200 leads from that event, which actually were worth like hundreds of millions because it's like a credit card processing company. So
how many clients do you work with at a time? Do you have like a limit?
Yeah, I try to limit myself to like 5.
Okay.
5 one-on-ones.
Okay.
And I make myself like really available to them. And I actually like to like bring them into my inner circle. And then I'll typically do like another 5 kind of like a little more like one step down from that. Okay. And then, I try not to stress myself out too much. And then I'm always doing like business deals. Okay. So right now I'm doing like a CBD deal where we're doing like, we're bringing celebrities in to like basically rep the product, help the product stand out. CBD is like so oversaturated now.
I know.
So it needs like every little edge you can get.
So in terms of like mindset.
Yeah.
What are the biggest things that you've learned for yourself that help you like stay positive and motivated and want to keep going?
Talk to your parents as little as possible. No,
What'd you say?
I said talk to your parents as little as possible. No,
I mean,
no, I actually talk to both my parents every day, and I love my parents very much, and they're super supportive now that I'm making money. But
well, that's the problem when you're not.
Yeah. So I knew that I had made it. Like I can pinpoint the day that I made it because my mom, no matter how much money I made, my mom was always like, "Go back and get your degree to fall back on." I'm like, "Mom, I make like $200K a month. Like I'm not falling back on like a $40,000 a year job. Like that's failing. That's like death, you know?" But she was always like, "Oh, get your degree just to fall back on, you know?" And then one day I just remember her being like, "Hey mom, whatever." And I said something like, "Oh, aren't you going to say like, get your degree to fall back?" And she's like, "Why would you need your degree? You make like you're doing like really well." I was like, "Oh, I've arrived." So you did it. I've arrived.
Have you ever struggled with mental health issues?
Yeah, I'm like a walking mental health issue. But,
are you?
Yeah. But I mean, for anybody to say that they're not like insecure or like, you know, self-conscious, I mean, come on, like who isn't, you know?
For sure. It's just interesting to me when people say that on here who I look at and I'm like, oh, they're not insecure.
No, I mean, I have like the worst anxiety of anybody
really
ever. Yeah, I've struggled with anxiety my entire life, mostly from growing up poor, and I was like always like burdened with like financial issues since I was like a kid. That's what keeps me motivated. I'm always like, oh God, I'm gonna be poor. Like even on my posts, like I literally joke around because I'm like, I spend so much time in the gym and the only other time I have is at work. And I realize I'm like, wow, my entire life revolves around like dodging obesity and poverty.
Oh yeah, you do always post that.
Yeah, but it's true. It's like I mean, I only started working out because I'm going to be 35 in like 6 months. And I was never in like good, like, I was never like, I was what we call skinny fat. So I was always like slender, but like not in good shape.
Okay.
And I could eat whatever I wanted. I'm from Chicago, so I'd eat deep dish pizza, Italian beefs. Everything's a different combination of bread, cheese, and meat, right? So it's like, do you want your bread on the outside and your meat in the middle, or you want your meat on top, or like, that's basically all Chicago foods. And so, but it never bothered me. And then and I would drink a ton. I could drink like a whole bottle of vodka every night and like no hangover the next day. And like,
I'm so jealous.
My 30th birthday, like the day after my 30th birthday, I got my first 3-day hangover.
Oh.
And then my metabolism started shutting down. I just like look at a salad and like get swollen up, like
same.
Yeah. So after that, I put on like, I moved back to Chicago from living in LA full time. I moved back to Chicago and I probably, I got up to about 240 pounds, 245 pounds at my peak from
you're tall
around
too.
like 180 though. It was like where I was. And now I'm at, I'm back down to around 210, but my goal is like 199. But I really just decided, for me, it's not about like being in like great shape or like buff or anything. It's more about preservation, right? So like I've had like a few acquaintances and like actual straight up friends, like 40 to 50 years old, because I'm getting up there now to where my friends are like 40s, and like died.
Really?
Yeah, heart attacks in Chicago because they eat like shit.
Well,
they don't.
Well, I have a family friend too who is 32 and had a heart attack because he eats like shit.
You eat bad. You don't take care of yourself. They actually say sitting is worse than smoking.
Sitting is really bad. I got a Fitbit.
So I've just started. It
helps.
There you go. Now Google knows everything about your medical history.
Don't tell me that. Okay.
But so I committed to myself that like. My appearance is important. I don't have to be like a stud or like a workout model or anything, but I do need to take care of my body
feel better.
just to preserve. What's the point of being rich and like having the coolest watch and the nicest clothes, nicest car if you're the big fat slob getting out of a sports car? You know what I mean?
You don't
like,
care about yourself.
Ask any girl. She would rather get with a doorman who's in great shape, driving a beater to work. Maybe not in Hollywood, but a doorman who's okay. She'd rather have an average guy driving or a guy that's in great shape, takes good care of himself, that driving an average car, living an average life, than some super rich guy who's just like 500 pounds and like. I
can't do that. Yeah.
I would say anywhere outside of LA, that's pretty much
not
the
in
standard.
LA. Yes.
In LA, they'd rather have the fat guy because they don't have to hook up with him. Like, they're like, oh, he just gives me the money. He's too fat, can't see it. So that's that was to me. I was like, I've spent all this time building wealth. I've spent all this time trying to be wealthy, and then what's the point if like I can't enjoy it?
Absolutely.
So I call it paying myself first. So every morning I wake up, I meditate, I read. So here's an important thing: meditate. When you meditate, picture the exact life you want.
Ooh, so I was going to ask you next. So you do have a daily schedule?
I do. I just really started doing this. So I had this PR client actually who does mindset training. Oh, cool. And I thought it was like all BS, but then he was the first person to ever tell me, he's like, you will get whatever life you picture in your mind.
Wow.
And I was like, yeah, that's why my life is hard, because all I'm thinking about is hard stuff.
You're stressed and
So I started just picturing, and he was like, what do you want? I'm like, I don't even remember what I want anymore.
Yeah.
I don't remember what my dreams are. I just want to have a great day today, He's like, picture every day, picture the house you want to live in, waking up next to the woman you want to wake up next to, what the car you want to drive feels like, what you're doing for your occupation, and what's important to you. And imagine yourself living that for 30 minutes every day.
I love that.
So that's been huge for me. And that's actually really started bringing things together for me.
Wow.
Because otherwise you forget
it's true.
You forget like, you're just like, I just want to survive. I don't know.
No, you get stuck in the rat race and you lose sight of like the long-term goal. Even if I make vision boards that have the same thing and I look at them.
Yeah. So like use your vision board as a monitor. And then every morning when you wake up, just meditate before you get on social media. Just get off your phone, 30 minutes. I listened to this YouTube thing called like Alpha State Meditation. 30 minutes and just picture yourself doing all the things that you want to do. So that for no other reason, for you just to remember what you want to do and know what you want to do. So if somebody comes to you and asks you, what's your dream car? What's your dream house? What's your dream partner? What's your dream job? You at least don't sit there like an idiot being like, oh, I don't know.
No, you know. And I think like once it starts getting like embedded in your subconscious, like you start, even if you're not aware of it, taking actions to get those.
Well, and that's supposedly what he says is it starts training your subconscious to recognize those opportunities to bring them to you.
I'm a mindset coach. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Guru class coming soon.
Yeah.
So I would say I do that first, and then I read. So I'm actually reading the Bible beginning to end right now.
Stop it, so am I.
Are you really?
I swear to God.
What book are you on?
I'm on literally Noah. Just is
the flood's just going down right now.
Yeah.
So,
I'm at the beginning. That's so funny. I said that to my friends, and they were like, "What?"
Yeah, me too. I've never met another person who's ever done it.
No, all my friends are laughing at me, but I'm like, my friend gave it to me.
Geniuses know
right?
what's up.
That's so funny. And I was like, no, I want to really read it. I know. I went to Hebrew school because I was forced to. I didn't pay attention, and I want to know. And I want to know the difference between the Old Testament and the New Testament, and why Jews don't believe in the New Testament.
Yeah, me too. So I want to just because all these people got all these freaking fiery opinions on it.
Yes.
And I'm just like, all right, you know what? I just got to read it from the source and make my own opinion. So yeah, I got so sick of hearing people's stuff because, and I'm just reading it beginning. I just picked it up one day, and it's kind of like a meditation because it's kind of a tough read. You know,
it is, and that's why I go slowly. Like I'm really only on Noah. And
nobody's judging you. It's okay.
Thank you. Well, I went home and I didn't bring it with me.
Yeah. So I'll give you a hack actually. So I put it on my phone on an app.
I have an app too, yeah.
And every time I find myself compulsively scrolling social media, I just close all social media and I start reading the Bible instead.
Wow.
And I'll just read like 5 minutes of it, and then it gets me out of that like scroll mindset.
Well, you know what my friend said? She's very religious, but she said something that was interesting. She was like, when you're reading the Bible, it is almost like a meditation. And it's, I mean, if you're very religious, you believe this, that it's almost like everyone gets their own thing out of it because it's like, it's more than just the words you're reading. It's almost like God himself or whatever higher power you want to say is almost speaking through it to you.
I believe that. So, but here's another interesting thing is that, so I go to church as much as I can.
Okay.
And I'm just trying to live a better life, you know, so in reading the Bible, I've realized that like a lot of the messages that these people are giving are just like BS. They're like, oh, this is the word of God, blah, blah, blah. But then I'll be like, that was totally out of context. I just read that story yesterday, and that's not what he was saying.
What people? People at church?
I'm just saying like even the person giving the message, like the minister, the preacher, or people like civilians coming up to you and like being like, oh, you know, God, the Bible says this, but then I'm like, but right after that it says this.
Right.
You know, and then also like there's this huge things in the Bible where it's not even God talking; it's just people's opinions, and then it gets quoted as God's word in scriptures and or in presentations or in judgment. You know, like when people are judging you and stuff, and I can actually now be like, well, that's in the Bible, but God didn't say that in the Bible.
Interesting. But then if God didn't say it, who wrote those people's opinions?
Well, so the Bible is kind of like, I'm still figuring it out, but it's really just kind of like the original like Ancestry.com.
It's history. It's history.
It's a big historical recollection, and so it has God's word, but it also has humans' word.
Right.
And you just have to read it to get it.
Okay, so this has been great. Got to wrap it up, but thank you.
Thank you, Megan.
Yeah, no, this has been awesome. I always enjoy talking to you.
Thanks.
I feel like I get wiser. I figure things out.
Wiser and better looking.
I don't know about that, but no, but it's good because I like talking to people who aren't just creatives. Yeah. It's like...
Yeah, and I think to make... we could end on this, that I think that to make it as a creative, you have to either partner with a business person or accept the fact that for your creativity to thrive, you're going to have to embrace business. Absolutely. Yes. I love that. So thank you guys. This will be out soon, and then I'll give you like a trailer, a clip, whatever you want. Sweet. It'll be on YouTube. This is also on all streaming platforms, so Spotify, Apple Music, iTunes, Anchor, which is the platform, a few others, but those are the only ones I listen to, so I know. Awesome. And follow VITO. I'll leave all of his information below. He is, if you need any advice on anything entertainment, PR, or influencing, go to him. There you go. All right. Bye, guys. See you soon. Thank you.